If someone comes to me and says, I think I want to get into veteran hiring, my very first question is why?
And what's the answer when you ask that question? What kind of answers do you get?
I get a lot of, well, I'm not really sure. I just think it's the right thing to do. But at the end of the day, we're in business to succeed in business.
It's the right thing to do. We have a shortage of people. We know there's some general skill sets that come out of the military that apply here, that work here very well. But I don't know how to find them. I don't know what to do with them.
Then we get into the how are we going to do it.
We are in our third and final session with Bill Kieffer on this whole idea of recruiting veterans, the disconnect between veterans and organizations. Again, welcome back to Recruiter Fuel. Again, 2 o'clock every Thursday. But this time, Bill, I want to switch gears. We've talked about all the problems in the last 2 sessions.
Right.
The disconnect, the interviewing issues, the perceptions of veterans, potential perceptions of employers, things that the DoD is or is not doing, or military is or is not doing. But we've talked a lot about this particular topic, and you've mentioned a number of times to me a basic framework that you talk about, that you implement, that you use, that I think you used at your previous employers, and now you're helping organizations do now.
I'm helping employers with it. Yep.
Yeah. So without, we don't want to go through all the steps because I looked at it. It's well thought out.
Thank you.
Give us some highlights. So if an organization came to you and said, Bill, I want to hire more veterans. I don't understand them. We haven't figured this thing out. How would you take me as the employer through that?
Great question. I appreciate the opportunity to kind of talk about this, because this whole issue of veteran hiring, as we said before, has 2 sides to the equation.
Yeah.
And the employer side is every bit as important as the veteran individual side. If someone comes to me and says, I think I want to get into veteran hiring, my very first question is why?
And what's the answer when you ask that question? What kind of answers do you get?
I get a lot of, well, I'm not really sure. I just think it's the right thing to do. I want to help veterans. I want to do the right thing. And those are all great and honorable things. And I'm glad people do that. But at the end of the day, we're in business to succeed in business. So I always try to turn the conversation to the business case.
So completely off subject, but I'm going to bring this up anyways. And it wasn't related to military. It was actually related to diversity.
Yep.
I asked the client the question, why do you want to do this? And they kind of fumbled around for a minute and then came back and said, it's the right thing to do.
Right.
I'm like,
and that's okay.
Fine, but is that going to drive your managers to do it?
Right.
Or are they going to feel like you're forcing them to do it? And are we setting the diverse individual or the veteran up to fail? What's your take on that?
100% agree.
Okay.
If we just say it's the right thing to do, we then have to define right. Okay, is it right socially? Is it right from just a human standpoint?
Morally, ethically, all that stuff.
Yeah, and that's okay.
Got it.
If the answer to that is yes, then we have to make it an application to the business circumstance. How is it going to help us advance whatever our business objectives are?
That's the key issue. And not to minimize it being the right thing or the wrong thing or any of that stuff, but if business leaders are paid to drive the business, so they have to understand how that veteran, how that diverse individual supports the business. So same kind of philosophy.
It is. And whether it's veterans or diversity or whatever those kind of topics are, if you're doing it for because it's the right thing, then we got to figure out how to take that right thing and apply it properly in our business circumstance.
Yeah.
So that's always the first step. One of the things I have potential clients or clients ask me, they say, well, how do I do it? I like to start with, what are you doing and why?
Why do you want to do something?
It's a basic problem-solving thing. First, you got to define the problem.
So is that kind of the beginning of your framework itself, is really uncovering the why?
First step's always, what's the business case?
Okay, all right.
Why do you want to do it? And then we get into the rest of the interrogatives. Who's involved?
Okay.
What do we think we're going to achieve by doing it? I always get to, what's the business case, and how does what you're aspiring to do help advance the business case? And in almost every case, we can get to ways to take that great intent and cause it to be accretive to the business circumstance.
Okay, so let's assume the question was answered, and it's the right thing to do. We have a shortage of people. We know there's some general skill sets that come out of the military that apply here, that work here very well, but I don't know how to find them. I don't know what to do with them.
Then we get into the how are we going to do it. Once we agree that it's the right thing to do, we know why, we know what good's going to look like. Well, how are we going to do it? What's the plan and how are we going to prepare?
So all of you that are on recruiting HR or you're a business leader, Before you start thinking about this whole veteran thing, before you start thinking about diversity and so forth, ask yourself the question, why do you want to do it in the first place? And if you can't come up with a great answer, before you start implementing a bunch of stuff, go back and try to figure out, why do you want to do that? Now we can come back to, what are you going to do?
Now that we know we've got the right business case, the right why, then the question is, how do we properly plan and prepare for this? Because one of the worst things you can do, I'll suggest to anyone that you're bringing into the organization, but to the veteran population, is kind of half-step this thing. If you're going to go after veterans, you better bring them in and you better be ready to realize they're serious folks by and large.
Yeah.
They've been through some serious stuff, many of them. And they want to know they're coming to an organization that's doing things right and that has a purpose and a mission that they can help serve.
So you've got to be very clear about your mission with most veterans, because they're wired to follow the mission. You talked about that in a previous session a little bit.
Correct. If you think to one of the earlier comments, it's a volunteer force.
Yeah.
Most veterans enter military service because it's a service. They have a sense of service, and they have a mission and purpose to fulfill, and that means a lot to them.
Sure.
So as you get into your veteran hiring work, understand what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, who's involved. Prepare not just your recruiters, not just your HR people, but prepare your organization.
How do you do that?
You got to make sure your management team and your employees, you got to have your thumb on, are they ready for veterans to join the group? I've kind of developed I don't have it trademarked or anything yet, but I will at some point. I call it the Care and Aware Matrix. It's a simple 4-box that has 2 axes.
Yeah.
On the horizontal, it's the awareness. Does the organization and the people in the organization, do they carry a high level of awareness about the veteran circumstance, the capabilities veterans bring, what the value they can add, or are they not aware? It comes without judgment. It's just either highly aware or they're not aware.
Yeah.
The other axis on this grid is the vertical one, and that's how much do they care. On the high end, these are folks that care deeply about the veteran circumstance and their business, and they care deeply about figuring out how to match those two up and optimize both the experience for the veteran and the business results.
So I'm aware and I really care. So you're at that top right-hand
right-hand corner.
Yeah.
Interestingly, the bottom of that axis is not neutral. It's negative. As much as our veteran population doesn't want to see it and doesn't want to hear it, nobody that's a veteran wants to hear this. There are folks in the world that have the position that veterans don't belong in business. They're damaged goods. We don't like the military. And you know what? It's okay. It is what it is.
All that stuff, yeah.
So we got to understand and make our veterans aware that that circumstance exists. And when we work with client groups about should we get into veteran hiring, they've got to do an assessment of their organization. And it can be a thumbnail assessment.
Sure,
It doesn't have to be a big, gigantic study. Say, how ready is our organization to really embrace this? If we're highly aware and we care highly, great, we got the perfect world. If we're not quite so much aware and we really are anti-veteran, maybe this is an avenue you want to approach as part of your talent management and talent sourcing strategy.
But no matter what you do, just like in anything HR recruiting, don't do a half-assed job.
You got to do it right.
Yeah.
You got to do it right. If you dip your toe in it, your toe's going to get wet.
Sure.
That's about it.
Sure.
If you're going to do it, go all in.
Okay, so now you've kind of made the decision, this is what we want to do.
Right.
We're aware, we care. Now what?
You got to figure out, like any recruiting process,
yeah,
where am I going to source them? Where am I going to get them? And many times people go, well, where's the magic LinkedIn spot, online site that I can go get a veteran? Isn't there some kind of single source? And the answer is
unemployedveterans.com?
Sure, there you go. The answer is no.
Yeah.
It's like any other talent source. There's no single place. You go to a single place to get a chemical engineer?
No.
No. So now there's
not if you're a good recruiter anyway.
Not if you're a good recruiter. There's a lot of resources out there that can help. One of the best, and I don't want to plug any particular product, but Justin Constantine wrote a book. He's a retired Marine Corps lieutenant colonel who was actually shot in the head and survived. He wrote a book with SHRM, From We Will to At Will. I'm not trying to plug the book, but it's got good content. He lists in there over 70 different sources where you may be able to reach out, connect, and begin to build relationships to source veterans. national level ones, local level ones, military installation level, veteran service organizations. There's a variety of them out there. But the key, like any recruiting pool, is you got to figure out where they are and build a relationship with those sources.
But there are, as you just mentioned, there's 70 some in this book of different places to go
Correct.
to. You
Correct.
just got to reach out. You got to do the work and actually connect with them.
Yeah, you actually have to
Yeah.
do the work. One,
Yeah.
you got to figure out where to go, and it's a great start point. And you know, we got great technology out at our fingertips
Sure.
right now. You know, veteran recruiting, veteran sourcing. Where do I find veterans? You can do, but you got to do the work. There is no single source to go to.
So in my experience, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, it's actually easier to find them than to recruit them.
Yes, you can find them.
It's like any position. I can find chemical engineers on LinkedIn,
Right.
on every other tool, on Facebook, doesn't matter.
Right.
But it's a different thing to recruit them, get them interested in what we're doing, and really that match piece that you were talking about at
Yeah,
previous
absolutely.
session.
You know, this concept of value proposition.
Yeah.
Why would someone want to come work here? Critically important that you understand that in the context of the veteran.
So in delivering the value proposition, because of being so mission driven, like if I go recruit a investment banker, do you think an investment, I'm not putting investment bankers down, but do you think they're highly mission driven, or do you think they're highly money driven?
I think it varies wildly.
But that's my point.
Yeah.
It's not all the same, but we can't go to a veteran with the same message necessarily that we're going to somebody who's been in the business world for 15 years already.
Correct. Because their experience is different.
That's right.
The world they came from is different. You know, simple examples, you know, veterans, their pay scales published, you can look it up online, it's public.
Yeah.
You know, the issue of money, everybody wants to make money. Everybody wants to make more money than they're making.
Of course.
But this whole issue of money being the primary motivator is not the same for all veterans.
Yeah.
Some it is, without a doubt. We're human beings.
Depends on where they are financially
I like
and
money
everything
too.
else. Sure.
You know?
You and me both.
Yeah. But the sense of purpose, sense of mission is critical. So if you want to get into the veteran world, one, you got to be where they are.
Yeah.
So you got to understand those sources that are available, build relationships with the sources. Two, you have to show some interest in the circumstance that they have experienced, and you got to have some awareness of what they bring to the table. And three, you got to have a value proposition that's meaningful to them. They're like any other client. You know, if I want to go sell a high-end automobile, the sale is different than if I'm selling a dump truck.
No kidding. Yep.
So you got to understand all that. And that's some of the work I do to help folks going, you know, how are you, what is your value proposition for veterans?
And you really take them through all the way to inculcating these folks onto the organization. So as you think about your entire platform strategy, whatever you want to call it, I mean, you literally go from let's decide why to let's bring them on board.
Well, and I even work with folks beyond that. I've got a client right now. The veteran's been hired, been on board for about a year. Is having some challenges, acculturating, being successful in this new world. So I actually engage and coach folks once they're already hired.
So that they actually continue to perform.
So they actually continue to perform. And the issue is not that they're not capable people that are well-intended. The issue most times is that the world is so foreign to them, they just don't know what they don't know.
Isn't it funny how often we think the day you hire somebody is when the process ends?
Oh, absolutely. It's magical.
It only creates more work on the day they start to do it the right way.
Well, it does.
And I would imagine it's even a greater issue with veterans.
You know, if you think, we talked a little bit in one of the earlier sessions about basic training and the orienting people to the military. It's robust, it's rigorous. And the issue of onboarding in most companies isn't nearly as rigorous.
Not even close.
No, many times it's, hi,
close.
you're here, let's make sure you got your benefits paperwork taken care of, get you your direct deposit stuff figured out.
Yeah.
There's your office desk or cube. There's the time clock if that's appropriate for your role. We hired you, you must be great, thanks, I'll see you in a week.
Yeah, just like what we did to Ian, who's standing right behind me.
Yeah, but he's still smiling, so that's a good thing. So onboarding, acculturation, getting people ready to go for the veteran, they have a high level of expectation that one, you know what you're doing, two, you've got a purpose, and three, you're going to actually do something rigorous to bring me on board so I can get up to speed, leverage my strengths, and help the mission succeed to a higher level sooner.
There's no doubt that companies need some support here. And if you're wondering about this whole recruiting veterans, where to find them, how to get them, how to make sure that they perform, how can people reach out to you, Bill?
Oh, I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I've
Bill
got my
Kieffer.
Bill Kieffer.
I think you go William Kieffer.
Bill. Yeah.
Yeah.
My website's www.kieffer-associates.com.
Okay.
You can get me on either one of those.
And I have found that you are so willing to even give away free information. I think you ought to be charging for some of the information you even gave to me, but I'm not writing you a check right now, so it's not going to happen.
But if you change your mind, I'll take it.
I'm happy to do that. So listen, thank you for spending the time, the last 3 series. This is a big issue. You know, a lot of the challenges we have with not having enough people to fill all these roles that we're trying to fill could ultimately be solved if we really focused on some of these veterans that have thought enough of our country to actually do the service they've done and put themselves in harm's way. The least we could do is learn about how do we recruit them. If you have any questions on it, definitely reach out to Bill. He's been fantastic. Now, we're going to have one more session with you in on next week.
Okay.
And I want to talk a little bit more about your opportunity to speak at a TEDx conference.
I'd love to.
So join us next time, 1 week from today. We're going to talk to Bill one more time, but it's not going to be about veteran recruiting. We're actually going to have a little bit more fun.
Great.
Bill, thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.